is when we need to bring this back for approval, and we may have to do it by a special meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
There's a meeting scheduled August 3rd, I think.
Yes.
So we can keep that. I just won't be at it.
Okay. Okay, so there's no change in schedule then. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, unless there's something more, we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is the, as Andrea said, the executive committee membership. So Andrea, I think you've got actually that and then the next two topics. So I'll just let you kind of walk through those agenda topics.
Excellent. So for those of you who were around earlier this spring and walked through the amendment of the bylaw process, one of the bigger changes in the bylaws was the creation of an executive committee that is a joint committee between the operating cabinet and members of the commission. And one of the main tasks of that group is to help set the agendas for both the operating cabinet and for this meeting. So for those of you who've been around for a while, the agendas get set because Kathleen, Shriek, and I put stuff on them. But we would really like that to be a much more strategic process that involves more people in being thoughtful about what needs to be on agendas and when they need to be there. So the bylaws ask for specific representation. And among that, Max is on it because he is the chair of the operating cabinet. And we need 3 other commission members to join us on that executive committee. And they will meet once a month. The goal at this point is to meet the second Wednesday of the month.
Andrea, is that the group that I actually chaired as vice chair of the Homeless Council?
No,
Is that separate and apart from this group?
That's separate from this group.
Okay.
So Andrea, I'm happy to be part of that.
That'd be great.
Checking my calendar, you said second Wednesdays. Do you know what time?
8:30.
So Andrea, you know my calendar, so that's going to be, it's going to be hit and miss.
Yeah. It may also be that we do a lot of stuff via email and stuff, but
yeah,
it'll at least be a group of people who are helping form the agendas.
Andrea, I'm happy to serve on that. I can do that.
Thank you, Shane.
I do one that I'll have control of my calendar and it won't be an issue for me.
Okay.
Andrea, the second Wednesday happens to be my board meeting day, so that's probably not a good day for me. We have executive committee meeting at 11 and board meeting at 12.
Okay. So I am hopeful, just so folks know, the city did fill 3 vacancies last month, which we were very excited about. They have 7 more to go. So there are more people to come. So we can pull the spot and see if some of the new folks want to join it, or if there's anybody else who wants to volunteer.
Andrea, I know I'm new, but in the interest of moving this along, I'll be willing to volunteer. This is Cynthia.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here, Cynthia, way to step up.
And it's a great way to learn about CSD, so thank you.
So we'll send out that meeting announcement for everyone. For the time being, we are continuing to meet virtually. What's the next agenda item?
Next is the emergency housing vouchers.
Right. Okay, so actually, Jessica's also here with me and has been involved in that, as is Kelly Church and Shriek Floyd. We have the as part of the American Recovery Act, there was a line of housing vouchers created called emergency housing vouchers. They will come to the housing authority, but the housing authority by statute has to take referrals from our coordinated assessment. So we have been, as we do with all resources in coordinated assessment, we set priority order based on need and vulnerability. So Jessica, you want to talk a little bit about the priorities that we talked about? Remember them?
Sure.
Okay.
I know the recommendation. Well, it was you and Sharika's conversation around because they're 9-year vouchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
To prioritize to families that have children under the age of 10, with the idea that it would help stabilize them before the voucher expires. So the top priority would be for those literally homeless with children under the age of 10. And then if the next priority would be based on length of time homeless, so the amount of time that they've been homeless. And then I know it's income and disability. I can't remember what order they come in for the next tiebreakers. I think it was.
Go ahead, Sharika.
With them being 9-year vouchers, the background behind why we chose families with the age range that we did is the thinking of families with younger children have more barriers to employment due to childcare issues than those without children. So with the vouchers being time limited, we wanted to look at the households that would be able to sustain income after these vouchers end. We also didn't want to place those who need more intense case management and more wraparound services in these type of vouchers, since they do end at a certain time and they may need ongoing support. So that was the thinking behind the way that we prioritize so far.
So how long are the emergency vouchers good, right? Just not sure I know enough about the emergency vouchers to even speak to it. Can you add a little bit of color around just what the intent, what they're used for, how long they last, where they're used?
So they're good for 9 years. They're basically like a Section 8 voucher. So they're used for supportive housing. Or I don't want to say rental assistance, but it's basically the payment for housing.
So it'll be similar to a permanent supportive housing voucher. The difference being that these vouchers are 9-year long vouchers. They're not transferable. So once we fill the voucher, if that family moves out of the voucher, refill it. So I think that those are the major differences, and there's no commitment at this point that these funds for the vouchers will renew after a 9-year period. Now, one of the things we've been very fortunate in our partnership with the Housing Authority is that when we have folks on permanent supportive housing vouchers that have stabilized in housing, they will transition them to other vouchers if they continue to need support. So if the family needed to continue support after that period, we have every reason to expect the Housing Authority would continue that practice. I think part of our thought is looking at families with children under 11, so they'd be elementary age students, who would give us the greatest chance to use the vouchers for the longest period of time to help families really get through that period of early childhood and stabilize, which would then, once the children are out of elementary school, parents have a lot more freedom and flexibility around work schedules and ability to meet both their family and their employment needs.
And the vouchers came out of the American Rescue Plan Act, and the Housing Authority was allocated 31. If that gives some context.
Okay, that's helpful.
And we've previously not really prioritized families in our prioritization plan, that subpopulation in this way before. So I think it's a good way to respond coming out of COVID to help some of these struggling families.
So of the need that we know, how much of the need will these emergency housing vouchers fill?
So I've been building a list and of literally homeless families with children under the age of 10, but that's also including families that are currently enrolled in rapid rehousing program, and the list totals 41 currently.
So 3/4, so 31 out of 41.
But I'm still adding to it, and I imagine there'll be some that might turn it down or it won't work for them. So we'll move down the list as we need to. But at the moment, it looks like it would be a good fit for meeting the need for that population.
Right.
The large majority on my list right now are DV cases through family services. A lot of families that have been fleeing domestic violence.
It's good. I mean, 31 that's good.
So we will need a motion and approval of this prioritization.
I'll make a motion. Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Second, Shane.
I have a question. Can Kelly make the motion?
I was going to ask, could we frame the motion so you capture it?
Well, pending her approval of her seat. So can Kelly make the motion?
Still pending?
I mentioned that there's 7 more seats the city has to.
I submitted that up with
Yeah.
We know.
2 or 3 years ago.
We know.
Here we're.
I'm sorry. Kathleen, I'm not sure I heard what you were asking originally. What did you ask?
Kelly has been coming with a pending approval from the city for her application to serve on the board. She has not officially yet been appointed to a seat on the commission. So can she actually make a motion? I don't think she can.
No.
So somebody else needs to make that motion.
So Kathleen, I'd like to make the motion
Thank you.
that we accept the framework associated with this family vouchers potential project.
Thank you for that.
And I will still second it. Shane.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. That's great. Any opposed to that motion? Okay. So that is approved. Thank you for that.
Thank you, everyone. And we should be able to start filling those vouchers. We'll confirm this policy with the Housing Authority. And we should be able to start filling those vouchers pretty soon, as soon as the agreement, I think, is signed.
Okay, great. So Andrea, the third item you had in your list of topics for today is evictions. I think an update there.
Andrea, could I say one thing? I didn't know if Sharika was going to chime in, but we have the signed MOU.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, that's
So
excellent.
my understanding of the vouchers is that the Housing Authority is basically administering the vouchers, but those organizations like ESR that could utilize those vouchers would work through the housing authorities. Is that the way it's designed?
They work through coordinated assessment.
CIC.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So evictions. So this was a last minute addition to our agenda. Earlier in the week, the White House organized and then convened yesterday a summit on the looming eviction crisis. So they asked this 50 cities with the highest rates of eviction in the US, of which Winston-Salem has the dubious honor of being number 16 on that list, to participate in a summit and then some planning around how we can better address and prevent evictions, and really leverage the opportunities in the American Recovery Act for developing a longer term system that would help reduce evictions in our community. So Sharika and I were both invited to attend that meeting. I will politely say that the guest list was determined, we're not clear how, and so not everybody who needed to be around the table to have that conversation from Winston-Salem was at the table. So the city has made the commitment to convene in the next week or so a group of stakeholders in the community who would be necessary to put in place a plan to address the looming eviction crisis. So the federal moratorium on evictions continues until the end of July, and the administration had said that's it. There will be no more extensions. The North Carolina moratorium ended yesterday. So we will begin to start seeing more and more evictions flowing as the month goes on. What we know about evictions from the homeless system perspective, typically evictions is not the first step it's a step on the way to homelessness, but we don't tend to see people right from eviction court in the shelters or on the street. More often than not, they move into doubled up situations or other more substandard housing than the housing they had been in on their path then. But what the research shows is that people who have evictions on their record, particularly people who have multiple evictions on their record, cycle and spiral down into a deeper set of poverty that is very hard for them to climb out of. Having that eviction make it hard for them to find any additional housing. It makes it difficult to find employment. The disruption and the chaos that is caused by an eviction disrupts children's schooling. If people are employed, it disrupts their employment. So we have a real opportunity in the community to shift that dynamic and use the resources we have right now because of the response to the pandemic, not only to address the emergency housing needs right now, but also to look at how do we build a better system going forward so that we don't have quite so many evictions as we have, and can maybe be lower on the list than 16. But I think—
Can I give a slight DSS report on that?
That'd be awesome.
So I'm almost know enough information to be dangerous, so I'll give you what I know. I'm proud of our agency that we mobilized quickly yesterday to adapt. We have dedicated staff and met with the magistrate of the eviction court. So we are going to have staff on hand starting tomorrow in the courtroom with access to the emergency rental assistance program data with DSS. So our DSS representative will be able to report to the magistrate if someone who's in the court has applied for emergency rental assistance, or if they've not applied yet, or if it's pending, or if they've received it, or whatever status they stand. And if they choose, they will be able to apply and learn about qualifications while they're there. In addition to being in the court, we mobilized to make a exhaustive list of everyone who is on the court docket for the month of July. To tell you, because I'm looking at it, there are 236 people on the court docket for the month of July. for evictions. And DSS is reaching out by phone and by mail to each of the people slotted for eviction and each of the landlords with information about the emergency rental assistance program, hopefully to curb some of what's likely to be a large surge. So there's some things happening on that front.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Andrea and Shane, sorry for the noise in the background. It's actually the ERAP weekly meeting that we have with the city and the county together. So with the meeting yesterday, I think one of the biggest things was that a lot of people that were at the table were, we were definitely missing the county, which I think would have been awesome since the city, myself, I work daily with the county with the development and the administration of this ERAP program. And we were also, I think the people at the table weren't aware of the programs that we have through the city and the county and the huge scope that we have, including where Shane just talked about how we have the staff now dedicated at the courthouse, how we also have the DSS computer lab now open where they can do applications on site, and how massive our call center has grown to include staff, you know, to take phone calls, also our human relations department, how they're involved with the courts and things. So I think we missed a lot of people who would have been important to give information about our eviction prevention and diversion programs. So we're working at the city to get everyone together who somehow is involved in these programs to the table so that we can better discuss ways that other cities may be using. For example, one example was given where the landlord has to attempt to apply for the rental assistance before going for an eviction. So just taking some of the examples that was presented and interpreting those into what we have already.
This is Kelly. Shane, I have a question for you. The 236 people that are on the court docket, are they under eviction for non-payment? All of them, or are these also criminal evictions?
So specifically the list that we created, because this was, we went through yesterday and this morning to compile the list through the court dockets, and that is all the people slotted for eviction regardless of reason. We went ahead to go ahead and reach out because, and the reason we did that is that we noticed a trend. Back in, I want to say it was November, we went through the dockets looking at eviction data while there was a moratorium that you could not evict anyone for non-payment. What we saw was a large trend of people saying, of landlords stating in their complaint that someone has not paid rent for 6 months and something minor. So they were really trying to evict them for not paying, but there was something else that they added on so they could get it on the court docket. So we felt it wouldn't capture all the data if we did not go ahead and slot every reason.
Okay, and I just want to make a comment for the Housing Authority. We are at all of our management offices completing applications for the tenants on behalf of the tenants. So at any point, they are willing to come into our office and we will help them complete the application for the ERAP funds and upload their documents for them. So we've been doing that for a few months and we're gonna continue to do it until the end of July.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. And thanks, Shane. When I emailed you back yesterday, I told you we were probably talking about similar things.
Yeah, I missed a couple of meetings yesterday because I was at the courthouse digging through dockets. So, yeah.
So, and for those of you who don't know, the work that Shane did, none of those eviction filings are computerized. He literally was going through file after file of the courthouse to pull that information. So I really appreciate you doing that.
So the meeting prior to this meeting, this came up and I volunteered to work and serve on whatever committee and discussions in regards to the evictions. And my organization, in my opinion, is on the side of the impact oftentimes that those evictions has on the family, as well as best we can to educate and inform clients, families about the processes. So perhaps they could prevent the evictions from occurring. There is now a number of resources in the community financially. Our organization managed the CARES Act with 3 caseworkers to assist families in understanding the critical financial needs. And the other side of what we do with families is to help them develop a strategy so that they can do better going forward. So I just want to make sure that those that are at the table that are making decisions could have information and be informed about the impact of the evictions on the side of the families.
For sure. I'm looking at the sheet right now. It's a live worksheet that we're working on the past couple of days. There are 9 people right now working on that sheet, working on contacting people. So there's some active work taking place at the moment.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody who is working on the ERAP program, working on eviction prevention programs. I think this is going to be the biggest crisis of the next few months is dealing with the fallout from the housing crisis that's coming. So that's what I had about that issue. Hopefully at the August meeting, have more updates on the progress that group makes.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. So there's really only one item left on the agenda for today, and that's data presentations, and showing Jessica covering that.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, you have stuff you need to share, or are you just talking?
I'll just talk. I can, yeah. Yeah, Andrea just wanted me to come and present. Some of you guys will know that we in Winston-Salem have been working with Built for Zero, which is a national movement for change that works with 80 other communities in the United States working to end homelessness using tests of change and best practices. Our focus the last couple of years has been really trying to end chronic homelessness in our community. With Built for Zero, we were doing like monthly coaching calls with them where they give us advice and we do small tests of change. But now we're in larger cohorts where they've put us with a couple other communities. And they're encouraging us to look at the length of stay of our chronic population in our community. So how long do they spend in our system? So, and they gave us some tools to try and figure out those numbers, which was great. Our chronic number for May sits at 94, and the average length of time our chronic spends on our by name list is 224 days, which is the number that we came up with. And we as a team created a goal to reduce that number to 175 by November 30th, which is ambitious, I think, but we're going to try our best. And what's great is one of our first tests of change, I guess, is to get more people on board with doing tests of change in our system. So we've got these forms that we're going around to everybody, trying to get them to write down a test idea, from our case managers to our program managers, to us at the United Way, thinking creatively, what's one small change that we could do that could help reduce the length of time our chronic spend in our system. What's great is the more of those and the more that Built for Zero sees us doing that work and handing in these forms, they have a pot of money, some flexible money that we can tap into to use how we want to help reduce the length of time these long stayers stay in our system. So we're really excited about getting started in that work. So yeah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Andrea, to that.
No, that was great. I just wanted to give everyone an update that that's really the focus of our work right now with Built for Zero and some of those changes that we're working on.
Okay.
So any questions about that work?
I guess we'll get more on that as we go through
We
the
will
course of the year.
Yeah, we'll continue to update. You know, I think a lot of the work we've done around continuous quality improvement has been large group work. And it, like, what that generates tends to be long lists of system problems. Like, we don't have enough affordable housing. We don't have enough mental health services, which are not things that we as a system totally control. And so what we're really trying to get folks to focus on is what in your work, what in your day could you try differently to see if that improves how the people you're helping get housed faster. And so, you know, because, you know, one of the things we know and part of the Housing First philosophy is that when people are in permanent housing, they do much better, right? And the supportive services that we provide them are more effective and stay longer and make longer permanent changes in individuals' lives when they happen when people are housed. So really, you know, even reduce right now in our rapid rehousing, I just was running these numbers. The average length of time between when someone enters the program and when they sign a lease to enter housing is 78 days. If we could even half that, right, we would make a huge difference in the length of time people are spending in shelters and on the streets. And that, you know, that 30, 45 days could make a huge difference in people's lives, getting employed, getting their kids stabilized and back in school. So we want to make sure that we are looking not just at the big system work that needs to happen, but also the little stuff that we can do in our daily routines that will help move people faster.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So those were the agenda topics that we had on the agenda today. I'm not sure if there's anything else, Andrew or anyone else, that we wanted to bring to the group today.
I don't think so. Laura was going to present today on some data around substance use trends in the COC, but I swapped her out for the eviction conversation. So she's going to come. She would like to come for the August agenda and talk about substance use and the trends that we're seeing, particularly in the street population around substance use increasing.
Okay. And I guess at an upcoming meeting, we'll give an update on the policy for encampments.
Yes, we will have the encampment committee has been meeting every other week. We're taking a break for 4th of July. And we should have a recommendation very soon for that policy.
Right. And those of us who were volunteering for the executive committee, sounds like that's a standing meeting already on Wednesdays, or we'll get a meeting planner for that.
Yes,
for
we'll
those
get
meetings.
a planner. So we timed it. We chose that time because it aligns with the operating cabinet meeting and then this meeting.
Okay.
So then the agendas.
Okay.
Far enough in advance, we tell people, but not so far in advance that crazy things happen.
And I see the next meeting is August 2nd. So that's when we will look at the applications for approval is August 2nd. But you won't be at that meeting, Andrew, as I understood it. But
Yeah, I will be on vacation.
okay. All right. Well, unless there's something else for the group.
And
What time is that meeting? What time is that meeting on August the 2nd?
2:30 to 4.
And I'll send out a reminder with the minutes and all that like I normally do. And Shane, Cynthia, and Jim, I just forwarded y'all the invite for the executive committee meeting.
Okay, great. All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate you joining for this meeting and the participation in the updates. So I hope everybody has a good 4th of July holiday and enjoy some time with some good weather, hopefully.
Yes, you as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.